I'll spoil our review right now. Why I'm so excited about this review is because a certain someone loves the movie and perhaps even used the word masterpiece, which he often hesitates to use, whereas the other is strongly anti-Maestro.
Yeah.
Maggie, do you want to take it first?
Yes. I am very mean about this movie. It was the only movie this entire year that I genuinely thought about getting up and walking out of. And I think it's because I have, like, to some degree, like an emotional attachment to musical theater, which, you know, Leonard was very involved in. And that's where I've learned a lot of stuff about him over the years. So I came into this as like somebody who has like historian's background and knows a lot about him. And I felt like this was more of a caricature of who the man was than necessarily a biopic. And it felt like with Bradley being, you know, the director, the writer, and the star, that he took the things from, you know, Bernstein's life that he thought would be a good, like, Oscar role for him. Like, that there was like stuff about Leonard's life, you know, he was, you know, watched by the FBI for some of his involvement in civil rights movements. He was blacklisted for a while. And while he never like went before like the House on House committee or any of that era, he was still very much affected by that. And he did a lot of like activism for like the AIDS crisis and for Vietnam War. And like, there's a lot of facets to his life and Felicia's life that I felt like were left out of this in favor of like 7-minute long orchestration scenes. And then I felt like there was like some weird framing of like his bisexuality that came across kind of weird because it was used to show that he cheated, even though he also cheated with her on women. And so it was just, it felt like a weird framing in a lot of ways. And I ultimately felt like his legacy was sacrificed for Bradley's desire to be Oscar nominated, which is never a great feeling to feel when you're watching a movie that you were really excited for. Like, I was really excited for this because I know a lot about the subject and I have like Bradley's like other works and I love Carey Mulligan. And it was just ultimately very disappointing.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a difference of perspective here, because I did not come at this with a historian level knowledge of his experience. I mean, obviously, I knew the broad strokes, given how iconic he is and how his works are everywhere. I went in. I always hate talking about expectations, but like we're human beings. Literally everybody goes into a movie with expectations. It's about keeping your mind open enough to experiencing the story that the filmmaker wants to tell. The expectations I did go into it with was, you know, I don't know if like a traditional biopic about Leonard Bernstein is really going to be for me. I don't know if I'm going to like it for that reason. And then what I got was as untraditional as I could have imagined. I was really shocked and taken by how well woven I thought the depiction of the pursuit of his career and craft was with his personal relationships in his life. And like, I thought both were on their own path that were really strong, stood on their own 2 feet, and got stronger by how they were woven together. And I think one of my biggest takeaways by the end of the movie was I didn't expect Maestro to leave me in a puddle of tears, but I think Bradley Cooper, I think, is phenomenal in this movie. I could name many a scenes where I'm like, the scene that you pinpoint, I think is one of the most exceptional scenes of the entire year on many different levels, like performance, craftsmanship, you name it. I do think Carey Mulligan is the Maestro sneak attack where she comes in and winds up stealing the movie by the end.
100%. I do agree with you on that fact.
She's exceptional. I've seen many performances from her that I like love.
Oh, yeah.
I need to watch this a few more times before I say something this definitive, but like this is going to be top tier for me from her. I thought she was exceptional in this, but overall, I was incredibly moved and just like mesmerized by the visual craftsmanship in this movie. I love the movie, like the fact that he opted, and also now I'm like thinking about a million things, but also Bradley behind the lens. One thing I really appreciated about this movie is I think that like everything that I was witnessing signaled to me that this was exclusively his version of the movie, which I always appreciate. I never really want to see a movie where I sit there and I'm like, any filmmaker could have made that. I like when someone puts their stamp on it. And I saw that in so many ways here. A particularly effective choice he made, I think, was to capture many major moments in longer shots rather than have them be overly edited. And when it comes to that, like 6-7 minute cathedral performance, another thing that I really love in that is like there's something about the sound design in it where like you're not like you might not even realize it's happening until after the fact, but somehow it's training your ear to like focus. There's a multitude of sounds happening, but to focus on the right thing at the right time. And I feel like to be able to pull off something like that is just like a real accomplishment for every single department, but then also for Bradley Cooper as the film's Helmer to bring everything together so seamlessly while making sure he's being like, look at how damn good their individual work is. So really like every single layer of Maestro, I just thought, I'll reuse the word I used in my tweet, exquisite. I loved it.
I love how like completely polar opposite we are. The thing is that, you know, I don't think like Bradley Cooper's a bad director at all or a bad writer. I like what he does behind the scenes a lot. And I like the performances he gives when he's being directed by somebody else. And so it's like a weird like merger for me to play off of the idea of mergers, of seeing him doing all three. And I feel like, I don't know, in my like perspective, there's certain aspects that end up being lost in the weight. Cause I mean, being the director, being the writer, being the star, that's like a lot to put into it, especially with a film with this much built into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're going to take on all those jobs, you got to put a lot of your life into a movie. And I think he said he's been working on this for something like 6 years. He really learned how to conduct and all that stuff. I'm trying to think of other crafts elements that I would want to highlight, but really every single element of this is exceptional. Also, shout out to Maya Hawke. I mean, I love seeing an actor come in and take a smaller amount of screen time and make it feel so whole and real. And like, even though that person is a small player in this particular version of the story, that she's having a big influence. And I feel like every time she walked into frame, like my eye was naturally drawn to her and she was serving the movie just as she should be. So even though she's not in the Oscar conversation right now, I just want to say Maya Hawke crushed it in this movie and just continues to deliver big in literally everything I've seen her in.
Yeah, she's great. She's a very talented performer.